So today we're going to continue on with section 4. Today is day 3 or part 3. The homework is labeled as P4C, and today we'll be factoring trinomials. The first examples that we're going to be doing are the easy trinomials, where that leading coefficient is going to be a 1. And notice up here they're telling us when a equals 1. And what that means is the standard form of a trinomial when we're factoring this is going to be ax squared plus bx plus c. So what they're referring to when they say a equals 1 is that this number in front of x squared, there's not going to be 1. It'll be an assumed 1. So all we need to do when we're factoring these easy trinomials is find the factors of the last term that sum to the middle. If your last term is positive, in order to multiply to get a positive number, both signs need to be the same. And the signs that they're both going to have will be the sign of the middle term. So those signs need to match the middle. If the last term is a negative number, then that tells me that one of the factors will be positive and one of the factors will be negative. The larger of the two factors will have the sign of the middle term. So my first example here, I am looking for two factors of positive 12 that when I add them up, I get a negative 7. So my clue here is my last term is positive, so both of the signs on my factors of positive 12 are going to be the sign of the middle, which is negative. So my factors of negative 12 are going to be negative, or positive 12 will be negative 1 and negative 12. And then negative 2 times negative 6. And then negative 3 times negative 4. So what I'm looking for now are two numbers that when I multiply them, give me positive 12. But when I add those same two numbers, I get negative 7. And if you go back now and add these factors, I get negative 13 on this one, let me use a different color here, negative 13 here, negative 8 here, and the magic combination was the negative 3 times the negative 4. Because when I multiply that, I get positive 12, but when I add it, I get negative 7. So my factors are going to be x minus 3, x minus 4. The order that you write them doesn't matter. So x minus 4, x minus 3. Either way is acceptable. The number is in front of x squared is a 1 or there's not a number. All you're doing is looking for the factors of that last term. And then those are the numbers that go right into the binomial. Now, my advice to you is whenever you're doing any factoring questions, if you have time, you need to FOIL your answer. And if it doesn't go back to the original, then you've done something wrong. Either you have the wrong factors or the wrong signs. So if I FOIL, I get x squared for first, last, or outside gives me negative 3x. Inside negative 4x, and then finally last, positive 12. We're going to add the middle, and it did go back to the original, so I did correctly factor this. So again, the answer is a binomial, two binomials, x minus 4, x minus 3. So for this one, again, easy trinomial, the number in front of x squared is a 1. So I'm looking for two numbers that when I multiply them, give me 6. But when I add them, I get 5. So I'm going to list my factors. And because the 6 is positive, that tells me that in order to multiply to get a positive 6, my signs need to be the same. And the sign that they're both going to have is that sign of the middle. So 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. But when I add 1 plus 6, I get 7. But when I add 2 plus 3, I get the 5. So my factors are going to be 2 and 3. So x plus 2, x plus 3. And again, the order here doesn't matter. If you would have preferred to write the x plus 3 first and then the x plus 2 second, it works. And again, you can always FOIL this and make sure it does go back, and it does. The next one, factors of -6, so two numbers that will multiply to give me -6, but who will add to give me -1. Now here, because that last term is negative, this tells me signs are different. One will be positive, one will be negative. And when I start listing my factors, the bigger number gets the sign of the middle. So factors of -6 are going to be 1 times 6, but my bigger factor gets the negative. And then 2 times -3. Those are my only factors that when I multiply them give me -6, but the one that works is going to be this one, because 2 plus -3 gives me -1. So my factors are going to be x plus 2 and x minus 3. For the next one, my last term is positive. This tells me my signs are the same and they both get the sign of the middle. So two numbers that multiply to give me 8, but who will add to give me -6. They're both going to be negative, so it's -1 times -8, -2 times -4. Those are all the factors. Now when I go back and add them, if I put a little plus sign here, this gives me -9, this gives me -6, so the combination I need is -2 times -4, because also -2 plus -4 gives me -6. So x minus 2, x minus 4. And again, the order that you write them doesn't matter. Okay, so for this one, we are looking for two numbers that when I multiply them, I get -24, but when I add them, I get -5. This tells me that because that last term is negative, my signs are different. One will be positive, one will be negative, and my bigger factor gets the sign of the middle. So 1 times -24, 2 times -12, 3 times -8, and then 4 times -6. Now, out of these four factors, let me go back and add them to find the one that will give me -5. This one, when I add them, -23. This one's -22. This one will give me my -5 that I need. This one gives me -2. So my two factors are going to be +3 and -8. So x plus 3, x minus 8. And again, the order doesn't matter. The next one, I'm looking for two numbers that when I multiply them, give me +1, but also when I add them, I get +1. Well, the only factors of 1 are 1 times 1. And that works, but if I do 1 plus 1, I don't get 1, I get 2. So this one cannot be factored. Now, some Algebra 1 classes would have you write the word prime. You can put any of these answers on the quiz if it can't be factored, or you could say not factorable. On an SAT, what they may do is just make you rewrite the question. So on the web assigned tonight, if there's any that can't be factored, just read the instructions in the question of what they would be looking for. Another one, factors of -18. So two numbers that when I multiply them, give me -18, but when I add them, I get -3. So I'll start my list. My signs need to be different. So I'm going to be doing 1 times 18, and the sign of my larger number is going to be, so my factor that gets the negative sign is the bigger factor because the sign in the middle is negative. So then 2 times negative 9, and then 3 times negative 6. Now I got to go back and add these to figure out which one is going to give me the negative 3. So when I add this one, I get negative 17. When I add this one, all right, let me fix this one. This should be 2 times negative 9. And then when I add this, I get negative 7. But when I add this one, I get the negative 3. So 3 times negative 6 gives me negative 18. And 3 plus negative 6 gives me negative 3. So it's x plus 3, x minus 6. And again, the order doesn't matter. And again, I highly recommend you FOIL to check. And then for the last easy one, two numbers that multiply to give you 2, but who add to give you 3. And there's only one set of factors. They both have to be positive to get a positive 2 and to get a positive 3. So it's going to be 1 times 2 and then 1 plus 2. And you get 3. So x plus 1, x plus 2. So now these are going to be a little bit more challenging because now the number in front of the x squared, this a value, is not going to be a 1. It's going to be some other number in front here. So what we're going to do is we have two options. You can either use the trial and error method by finding the factors of the first term and then the factors of the last term until you find the combination that when you FOIL them will give you that middle term. Now, when the first term and the last term are kind of large, and if they have a lot of factors, this can be a bit time consuming. But when the factors are, or when the numbers at the beginning and the end are small, this might be the faster technique. However, I prefer the factor by grouping option, which is what I'm going to show you next. But let me show you what you would have to do for the guess and test or trial and error method. So if you're going to guess and test, what you're going to do is look for the factors. So I'm looking for factors of 2x squared, and that's just going to be 1x times 2x. So those are going to go in my first spot here, x and 2x. Then I have to start listing all of the factors of negative 15 that are going to go right here in this spot. And again, you're just going to start trial and error by plugging them in. So in order to multiply to get a negative 15, I'm either going to do positive 1 times negative 15 or negative 1 times positive 15 or positive 3 times negative 5 or negative 3 times positive 5. So now what I need to do is start putting those in and then FOIL it until I find the one that works. So if either of these first and last terms have lots of factors, this is a more time-consuming method. So if I start putting them in, let's say I take the first one. I put a positive 1 and a negative 15. Now I need to FOIL it to see if it gives me the original. So once I multiply this, first, outside, inside, and last, and I add those middles, really all you're checking is outer and inner. Notice it did not give me that. So this is wrong. Start over again. So then again, put your x and your 2x in here. And now let me try another one. So let's try instead this one. Let me put, and again, where you place it is going to be important. So let's put the plus 3 here and the minus 5 there, and let's FOIL it. 2x squared, negative 5x, positive 6x, and then finally last. And notice when I add those, I do get the positive 1 that I was looking for. So that is my correct answer. My two factors are x plus 3 and 2x minus 5. So once I saw that this combination was giving me a kind of a bigger number, that's when I decided, let me switch. Now, if you would have placed maybe the 5 here, let's say you would have put the negative 5 here and the positive 3 here, that would not have worked. So this is why if you're going to use the trial and error method, you have to FOIL to check. All right? Now I'm going to do the same problem, and I'm going to do factor by grouping. This is the technique that I highly recommend you do. Now, again, there are all kinds of tricks out there that teach you how to or can let you factor, but just make sure that if you're going to use a trick, that you understand what you're doing. Too many times I've seen students who try to use the tricks and then they mess up the problem. Factor by grouping never fails. So what you're going to do for factor by grouping, here are the instructions. We are going to multiply the first and the last term. So I'm going to multiply 2x squared times negative 15. Once I multiply those, I get negative 30x squared. These are the two, what I'm looking for, the factors of negative 30x squared, that when I add them, give me the middle term, the 1x. Now, really all we're doing here is looking for the factors of negative 30. Because once we find those factors, they're both just going to have an x to produce that x squared. So if I start listing my factors of negative 30, now again, same rules apply. When I'm trying to get a negative number, my signs are different, and the sign of the larger factor is going to be the sign of the middle. So my factors of negative 30 are going to be negative 1 times positive 30, negative 2 times positive 15, negative 3 times positive 10, and negative 5 times positive 6. These will all multiply to give me a negative 30. If I go back now and add them until I find the 1 that gives me the 1, this gives me 29, this gives me 13, 7, and the last one was my magic combination here. So it's going to be negative 5x times positive 6x, and then negative 5x plus 6x gives me the 1x. Now what we're going to do is replace this middle term with the factors that we just found. Now I'm going to turn this into a 4-term polynomial. We already did the factor by grouping, okay? But our original problem was a trinomial. The way that I make it a 4-term polynomial is I rewrite the first term, so the 2x squared. I'm replacing the middle with the two factors I just found. So negative 5x plus 6x, and then rewrite the negative 15. So all I've done is replace this x with the two factors I just found. Now I'm going to factor this by grouping. So I'm going to make two groups. I'll make a green group, and I'll just make a black group here. So the factors of my green group, or my GCF of my green group, is going to be x. So after I divide, I get 2x minus 5. My greatest common factor of the black group will be 3. After I divide, I get 2x minus 5. Remember, when you factor by grouping, these two need to look the same. They're the same. You write it once. It now essentially becomes a GCF. And then you take the two original GCFs that you divided by, and they go into the second binomial. Again, I highly recommend after you think you have your answer, and this is the answer, that you FOIL it to check. So if I do a quick FOIL, 2x squared plus 6x minus 5x minus 15. Add the middles, I do get that single x, the one x that I was looking for. It did go back to my original problem, so I did find the correct answer, 2x minus 5 times x plus 3. Again, we will be factoring all year long. The instructions aren't necessarily going to say factor. Later on, they're going to say find the solution, find the roots, find the x-intercepts. These instructions are really telling you, you got to factor. So you're going to see it as it comes up, but we will be factoring all year long. So let's go ahead and do the factor by grouping because it never fails. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply the first and the last term. 2x squared times 3 will give me 6x squared. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give me 6x squared, but who will add to give me negative 5x. So I will start listing my factors. So my factors are going to be negative 1, and they both have to be negative in order to get a positive 6 and to get a negative 5 in the middle. So it's negative 1x. And again, if you'd rather just think of this so you don't have so many x's here, think of how are you going to multiply to get the 6. And to get the negative, it's negative 1 times negative 6, negative 2 times negative 3. Then when you go back and add these, I get negative 7. When I add this, I get the negative 5. So those are going to be my factors. It's going to be negative 2x times negative 3x, and then negative 2x plus negative 3x, which gives me the negative 5. Now, again, they don't go right into the binomial. Now we have to factor by grouping. So you rewrite the first term, 2x squared. Replace the middle with the two factors you just found. It does not matter if you would have written the 3x first, the negative 3x first, and then the negative 2x second. You will still get the same answer. Now I'm going to make my groups. Green group and a black group. GCF of green is going to be 2x. So write that GCF, show what remains after you divide, and then the GCF of the next group. If you pull out a positive 3, your signs are off. So I need to pull a negative 3 GCF. So when I divide, the two answers that remained in the parentheses are the same. So I have an x minus 1, and then I also put the two GCFs together, and it's 2x minus 3. Again, I highly recommend that you FOIL if you have time on the quiz. It will save your answer, especially if you've picked the wrong sign or even the wrong factor. Let's try the next one. I'm multiplying 2x squared times negative 27. So once I do that, I get negative 54x squared. So I'm looking for two numbers that will multiply to give me negative 54x squared, but who will add to give me negative 3x. So that product there is negative. So this tells me my signs are different, and the bigger factor gets the sign in the middle. So my bigger factor will be negative. So let's start listing. And again, if you don't want to do it with the x, remember, whatever numbers we get for the factors of the negative 54, know it's going to have an x with it. So factors of negative 54 with the bigger factor being negative. 1 times negative 54, 2 times negative 27, 3 times negative 18, 6 times negative 9. And then now add them. And the one that will give me positive 3, this gives me negative 53, negative 25, negative 15, and negative 3. So my combination here is the positive 6 and the negative 9. So 6x and negative 9x. And then when you add them, you do get the negative 3x. And again, remember, we need to factor by grouping now. So you rewrite the first term, 2x squared. Actually, let me just do it down here. I'll just put it here for now. Okay, so then replace the middle with positive 6x. And again, it doesn't matter the order you place them in here. If you would have preferred to put the negative 9x first, you can do that. So then this is the last term. It gets rewritten. So all we did was replace this middle with the two factors we found. And now I'm going to make my groups. Got a green group here and my black group. So my greatest common factor of green is going to be 2x. So then after I divide, I get 2x is the GCF. And then after I divide, it's x plus 3. And now for here, if I pull out a positive 9, my signs are off. So I'm going to pull out a negative 9. So negative 9, and then I'm left with x plus 3. Take the factor that is now in common, x plus 3, and then put the two GCFs together as well. And again, FOIL that. If it doesn't go back to your original problem, you've done something wrong. And again, if you prefer to write 2x minus 9 first, and then the x plus 3, the order doesn't matter. All right, this one's going to be kind of big, but we're going to multiply 8x squared times 18. Once I multiply this, I get 144x squared. So I'm looking for two positive factors because the 144 is positive and so is the 51. So two numbers that when I multiply them, give me the negative 144x squared, but when I add them, give me positive 51x. So my factors of 144 are going to be 1 times 144, and then this would give me, if I add them, 145, 2 times 72, which would give me 74, and then 3 times 48, and when I add them, I get the 51. So it wasn't that bad. I could have kept going, but as soon as you find the factor that works, don't keep going. So here it's going to be 3x times 48x, and then 3x plus 48x gives you the 51. So again, rewrite the first term, 8x squared. Replace the middle 51x with the two factors you just found. And again, it doesn't matter the order that you place them. You get the same answer either way. I'll go ahead and put the 48 first. Doesn't matter though. So make your two groups. So my greatest common factor of the green group is going to be 8x. Going to divide. I'm left with x plus 6. Okay, so then GCF here is 3. So plus 3, x plus 6. This is now the factor in common, so write it down once. And then now put the two GCFs together, 8x plus 3. Now just to show you, it wouldn't have mattered. So if I would have done 8x squared, and let's say instead I put the 3x first, and then the 48, just to show you, we're still going to get the same thing. So if I make a green group and then the white group, my greatest common factor of my green group is just going to be x. So once I divide, I get 8x plus 3, and then my GCF of the white group is going to be 6. And then you still get 8x plus 3. You just put the x plus 6 and then the one in common. Does that make sense? So it doesn't matter. All right, the next one, you should always try to keep your x squared term positive. So what I'm going to do before I begin factoring is divide everything by -1. I'm going to pull out a GCF of -1. Next, I'm going to do the same technique. I'm going to multiply the beginning and the end. So I'm looking for two numbers that are going to multiply to give me negative 18x squared, but who will add to give me negative 17x. And honestly, this one's not too bad. So what I'm looking for are the factors of negative 18. So this tells me my signs are different. That will give me negative 17. My bigger factor is going to be negative. So factors of negative 18, positive 1 times negative 18. And I don't even need to go any further. Here's my combination. I could have kept going, but I don't need to. So now let me go ahead and fill it in. So my two factors here are going to be 1x times negative 18x and 1x plus negative 18x. Go in there. So again, do not forget about the GCF. And then rewrite the first term. Replace with the two factors you just found. So the 1x and the negative 18x. And again, it doesn't matter the order you put them in. We're going to get the same answer either way. So I need to make groups. So I got a blue group here. And I'll do a purple group. So again, don't forget the GCF. I just keep writing it down. So my GCF here is just going to be an x. So 6x plus 1. And then my GCF of purple is going to be negative 3. And again, I still get the same thing I got in the blue. So now, have the GCF, take these two, put them together, and the one that was in common. And you're done. And you may also see it written as just a negative sign, or with the negative 1 in front. So always try to keep your x squared term positive. It will make it moving forward a lot easier. If you don't, you could still get the right answer. I'm not sure if WebAssign will mark it wrong if you don't. So it's a good habit to just make sure your x squared is term positive by dividing out a negative 1.